Google, look up on the internet, all these websites, car guru, like who, type in whatever you need. And I noticed a lot of people are having a similar problem with this type of vehicle. And they gave you some little, hacks to do. None of that worked. And so I came inside and I was like, call the dealership. So I called the dealership. And then I call the insurance. And trust me, I'm going somewhere. I said sister wives because my intention was to talk about sister wives, right? My intention was to talk about sister wives. But before I talk about that, I have to do a recap on what actually happened, like real time stuff that's happening. I called them. I called the insurance company, and they're gonna tell me. I tell them what happened. And I'm like, I have insurance. Towing, whatever. And they're going to tell me, well, congratulations or something like, you're in luck. The tow is going to be free. I'm like, luck? What is he talking about? Don't we pay insurance every month? That's not luck. That's preparation. Right? And that leads me to speak about the topic that I wanted to speak about. You saw how that all just like went all the way in line like this. My point is, point number one, we have to be careful. We have to live, but we also have to be careful what we manifest in our lives. This is why we think before we speak. Because sometimes when we are like, yeah, I'm ready for the test, up pops the test. Up pops the test. There's similar, last week I had a conversation on here, are Israelites giving a bad name? So I was selling last week, and up pops another, someone comes and asks me, oh, what's your name? I'm like, you call me Amuna. And then he's like, he starts telling me what my name means in Arabic and telling me he lived in Jordan, which is a neighboring state to Israel, right? And all this stuff like this. And he was like, oh, I can write your name. It's an elder. I can write your name in Arabic. I'm like, cool. I'm down with that. Let me see what you got. So after that, he's like, well, can you write your name in Hebrew? And I'm like, yeah. So I start writing my name, and he's like, oh, okay. And then he starts to try to find the category to put me in. Well, are you this? Well, are you that? I just had this discussion that week, and a few days later, the same thing happened. I have the discussion about goal setting and setbacks, and boom, this happens. But the sister wife conversation is something that, if you're not familiar with some of the work I've done, as well as myself, what Sifta Mariano has done, it's on Lit Bomb. I didn't put it down below, but .com, where there's a whole study done on sister wife conversation, seeking sister wife. I really wanted to put seeking sister wife in the title. I think I put sister wife. But what does this all have to do? There's some people across all communities that, whether it be a melanated communities, the Islamic community, the conscious community, Israelite community, sects of Christian spaces, where people are actively seeking. This is a goal for them, because remember we're talking about goal setting. This is a goal. The goal is polygyny. The thought is that polygyny is going to allow you to build your family economics, and it's going to take you out of the situation that you're in. It's going to be roses, and it's going to be sprinkled in pixie dust, and it's the answer. There's even some women on YouTube and men who have videos that it is the answer to the issue in the melanated community. That's a goal for many, right? Within this construct, they say it's antiquity, it's old, and our ancestors did it, and they're still doing it on the continent. And see, sis, this is why you have a Western mindset, right? And I've spoken about this topic, debated this topic, had round tables about this topic countless times over the last, I would say, four or 5 years, okay? It led me to do a massive study on what was happening. There are models of this polygyny sister wife construct. I'm just going to deal with polygyny right now, because polygamy is the multiple. Hey, shalom, sis, how you doing? Polygamy doesn't necessarily mean that it's multiple women. Polygyny is multiple women with this one man. And so people have these goals in their mind. And Boker Tov, good morning to everybody. And people have these idealistic settings that they have. But in many of these cases, not all, in many of these cases, There lacks a level of, there's a promise of security, but the reality is that the model lacks security because of the fact that it is not governed here in society, this Western society. And because there are no checks and balances, it leaves the government, good morning, it leaves the governing up to the person themselves, which usually is the one who is initiating with the ideas that they have. And so when things fall out, people are left without insurance. So like this morning, I was able to call and say, hey, I have insurance. I'm going to need you to tow the car to the dealership X, Y, and Z. When you have a promise without what they're calling Western mindset of papers. And hey, good morning, everybody. She said, this is so true, yet people are hurting people just to get this lifestyle badly. This is very correct. We have to be honest about what's happening. There are many things that's happening, but let's talk about the lack of insurance. It promises security. The people promise security. You're going to have a babysitter for your children, and you're not going to need no outside help, and all the money is going to pool into the family, idealistically. Most times, if it's not legal marriages, then the women, the subsequent women who come in, do not have any physical insurance. They are not reflected as really being legally lawful, binding to that man, right? And so and their children as well. So for instance, in the Mormon community, if you watch that show, or if you saw that show, Seeking Sister Wife, I was watching it for, like I said, I did like a year's worth of study, and you could read the articles, but I was watching it to see where it was going. And one of the Mormon people in the Mormon community were upset because the wider community didn't accept it. The children couldn't call the man father in front of people, only the children of the legal wife. And then those subsequent women didn't have any real security out here in the greater spaces. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so oftentimes people don't realize that until the members of the household may turn against that individual, or the man may turn against the woman, or the woman may no longer desire to be a part of that. When she steps back out into society, because she wasn't accounted for all this time, it's like starting all over again. Hold on. And this is facts. This is facts. Hold on. If anybody would like to have this discussion, I know I haven't come on here and had discussion in a while. Are we talking about the Popeye's chicken sandwich? Tired of people hurting each other over that too. You're funny. No, that Popeye's chicken sandwich conversation, man, I'm like, I just watched it, and then I'm like, I'm not going there right now. I'm not going there. It's just like the other woman who ran up on her son. At first I was going to discuss it, and I'm like, right now I'm not in the mood. She ran up on the son. The little boy couldn't be more than 5, 6 years old. And she runs up on him like he's a grown adult, starts cursing him out, all kind of MFs, snatching him up by the neck, beating him in the street. And I'm like, lady, you're doing too much. That's beyond discipline. I was going to speak about that, but something about child abuse really rubs me the wrong way. And so I wasn't able to follow up on the case to see what happened, but I heard that the child was taken away. I don't know. I have to follow up more on that, but that was very, very disheartening. When those children grow up, when that boy grows up, and all of that he experiences inside of him, then we wonder why many males suffer with their relationship with their wife, or their relationship with women, right? Or the feminine principle, because what she just did, not even the father should react to him in that way. It's clear that something is going on with that young boy, and she thinks the way in which to correct it is to, crush him, basically, because that wasn't disciplined, and then get it on video, which is dumb because, you're living in a place where you can get charged for some stuff like that. But let's go back to sister wife conversation. And so, again, some people say that this is the solution, sister wives. Now, if you look in many societies, in certain West African culture, in Hebrew language, the term for sister wife is based in a term that means adversary, right? Yeah, it's gone wrong. That what she did, that humiliation, that bullying, that concerned the little boy again. Yeah, that was off. I don't know if you guys saw that video, but whoever took the video, if you was a friend to her, you'd have been like, "Yo, shorty, I really don't think we should video this. I really don't think we should post this." I mean, the woman turns around and calls the teacher a MF. She was like, "This little MF, I'm going to break your such and such and such." And then she starts cursing out the teacher. And then she was like, "Call me if he's such and such and such." And she snatching up the boy in 10. I'm like, lady. We'll talk about that another time. Back to the sister wife thing. Some people say, "See, sis, that's why she need a sister wife, because it appears that she's stressed." And adding another woman. Let's talk about the basics of the sister wife conversation, okay? Because I've thought about it a lot for the years. Like I said, and studied it over the years. You have one male energy, right? Which is the man. And then you have the feminine principle, which is the female. Okay? Together, I don't think sister wives is good. Just lust for men. Yeah, this is what we're trying to... There's a lot of people who have those thoughts, sis. Right? And so we have these two energies. And the male, for whatever reason, or in some cases, the female says, we need another feminine energy to come in but it's not going to necessarily balance, because right now you have the male energy and you have the female energy. He has his principle that he operates in, and she has her principle. When you add another principle into the one spot, because there's only one wife spot. Some people will say there's a lot of wife spots. There's only one wife spot, because we're talking about balance. All of creation is balance. When you look at how the creator set creation, you have to have this balance to be able to create. So when you continue adding more female energy, this is the female side, sorry. The female energy, it becomes imbalance. And what happens oftentimes where you see this rivalry come in some cases, is that they are vying for the attention of the man, or the validation of their position in that man's life, because women need stability, right? Women need stability. So they're vying for the attention or the position in that man's life, and that other woman that's occupying their space is seen as a threat. Now, you will have some people who will tell you, "That's selfish, sis. You know what I'm saying? That's only thinking about yourself. That's not thinking about growth, this, that, and the third." Remember, you still only have one masculine principle. So you have the woman who's responsible for the rearing of the children and the nurturing of the children. So when you increase the amount of children that you have and the amount of responsibility that that man is responsible for, when you look at many of the communities, what you see is that the imbalance that was created in that relationship extends into the lives of the children. This is not something that I'm making up. This is something when I looked at the Mormon community, when I looked at the Hebrew community in Dimona, when I looked at West African communities, when you look and you listen to the children, because remember, the two come together and they're supposed to create another set, which is the next generation to come. When you look at the children from this type of construct, and speak to them and talk to them or interview them and hear the feedback that they're having, some are either, you're going to have ones that go two ways. You're going to have those who say, "This is what I grew up with. This was the new black. Basically, this is the new norm. And so this is what I know. And this is what I'm going to do." And then you're going to have those on the other side that's going to say, "I will never go into that space. I will never do that. And these are the reasons." And depending on where they are, they begin to enumerate all of the reasons why they think that even though they grew up and they saw it, it's not something that they would want to replicate in their lives, right? Hold on. Concerning the children, I'm going to come read the comment. I don't know why I can't see the comment. Oh, here. That's exactly what they're doing too, telling women it's selfish and they need to start thinking about the community or vision, build a legacy, and follow the ancestors. Correct. This is the tactic. This is a manipulation tactic. This is how somebody tries to truck people. This is how somebody tries to, what time is it? 10:47, he's late. This is how somebody tries to manipulate other people's will. They tell you that it's selfish and that you're self-consumed. Remember, we're talking about children, because you're talking about you're building a legacy and you want to have children. That means the children, the byproduct of these unions, should be of utmost importance. Yeah? The quality of children, the ability to raise children. Now, how many people in here have children? Raising one child is not easy. I'm not talking about, oh, I just gave you food, clothes, and shelter. I'm talking about the cultivation of that soul and giving that soul individually what it needs, because each and every soul is different, right? Giving that individual what it needs, what he or she needs in order for them to be positively contribute to society, right? So that they may be balanced in their journey. Now, multiply that. You have 3, you have 4, you have 10, you have 15, you have 20 children. That's a job within itself. It's a huge job. And if we're going to be honest, there is no way that one is going to be able to give the children 15, 20, 25, 30, the base needs, which is the food, the clothes, and shelter, and the emotional stability and spiritual guidance that they need as young children growing in order for them to be whole. What you have is a lot of maladaptive, because the more children you have, if you have one woman and she has 5 children, you add another woman and that woman has 5 children, they still have this large amount of children. So even though you add another person into the equation, that doesn't necessarily lighten the load of what they need to do within the household, as well as what they need to do to ensure that the children grow up the way in which they need to grow up. But when you say things like this, it sounds like you're a hater. And people, what I realize is that when people just talk about children objectively, as if they're not souls who need nurturing, you see their mindset, they're objects who I just need to accumulate in quantity, not necessarily the quality of the souls. And you will have these different minds. You can have one woman with 10 children, and the same thing applies. If that man is just looking to impregnate his wife and have a multitude of children and not look at how am I going to provide for these children coming in the future? How am I going to make sure to the best of my ability that all of their needs are met? Now, I have some examples, okay? I know we're talking about sister wives. Hold on. What's this? Ew. I know that has to be consuming for the mother trying to fraction herself for all these children. Yeah, it's not an easy matter. Because every child is like, every soul is like a different plant. Every plant doesn't need the same attention in the same way. Some plants need more sun, some plants need more water, some plants need more shade. And so you have to know the spirit of the child. If you try to treat all the children the same, you're going to use one blueprint for all of the children, you're going to mess up some souls. Because some souls are naturally more compassionate and others are naturally more selfish. So you might have to spend more time over here with them on this. You understand what I'm saying? And this is also like the schoolroom. Some children are audiovisual in their learning. Some children are tactile in their learning. You know what I'm saying? So when you try to put one learning style on all the children, some of them are bored, some of them don't understand what you're saying, and some of them excel. And they have learned that in recent times in these school systems that you cannot teach all children the same. It's not that they're dumb or they're slow or they're stupid. It's that the way in which they process information may not be the way in which you're disseminating the information. And the same thing goes for parenting. Hold on. Ooh. Already. It says here. Ooh. Amana says that's exactly what they're telling. Okay, I read that one. Better to have one righteous child than thousands of unrighteous ones, all esteemed to the Creator. And that's actually, I believe it's the Apocrypha that says that. I believe that's the Apocrypha right there. My grandparents had 10 children, one wife, one husband, and he supported them all, and she didn't work. She made the clothes, etc. One woman is more than enough. And this is what I'm saying. You had, my grandfather had 7, and you know what I'm saying? And you had big families coming from one woman, and still the workload. What would happen in either case is that the workload it gets passed on either to the older children who don't yet have all of the skills to rear children, and some of the responsibilities get passed on to the older children, to help compensate for what's going on in the household so that the load can be carried, because it's a lot. And so these are some of the reasons, sorry, that people advocate. One is enough. Anthony says one is enough for me. And again, I'm just speaking from what I have heard over the years. Some people want to try it out, so they're actually experimenting with the lives of people, trying out to see whether or not this cool lifestyle having, oh, it's Chris. Hey, Chris, what's going on? No time, no here. To see whether or not having multiple women is going to work out. Some people use the text, biblical literature, the Quran literature. People use the text. I've been good, brother. I've been good. They use the text to try and justify their lust, as the sister said earlier. Some men have lust or a fantasy in their mind of what it's going to be. So even though they may not need, in the situation where you don't have any children and the wife you have married is barren and you want to have children, this is one of the main reasons in antiquity, even though some may disagree, and that's fine. This is one of the main reasons that I have found in antiquity that men were encouraged to take on another woman, is that they have no seed, they have no heir, and the wife that they have is barren. And this was a way in which they devised. This would have been their equivalent of in vitro fertilization or a surrogate mother. But when the sister wife comes in, and oftentimes it creates contention. And it creates contention because you have two people occupying the same spot. And people will lie and I'm trying to find the thing, and let you to believe that the contention is something that's wrong with you, when naturally this is what it's going to promote. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get okay. Even in Africa, Islamic women that I've dealt with that have father with multiple wives, each wife has their own home, and that man paid that dowry to prove he can take care of them all. That's another conversation of how it is constructed, because in some places, like you say, each person has their own dwelling. And here I noticed that because it is for economic reasons a lot of the time, and for survival reasons, they advocate putting all the women, not all, but many, advocate putting all the women in one home so that it can be easier on the male or easier on the females. But in a lot of spaces, it creates more contention. One of the places we see this, if we just want to look, is in the Mormon community. What if the man can't produce a baby? This is another. They never want to give the woman to another man to make a baby. And that's another question. If a man can't produce a baby, there's adoption. If you look at the story of Father Abraham, he was well in age and was not able to, what it appeared to be, to produce child. Sarah didn't have child. He was well on in age. And so he had Eliezer, his manservant, and there was like a customary where if you didn't have children and you were of status and you had a manservant, this is why he asked the question, will his servant inherit? Will that be his heir? Someone who grew up in your home and who you would be able to pass on whatever it is that you're passing it on to. So there are all kind of cultural things that existed. The tow truck man late. What time is it? Almost 11 o'clock. Yeah, so this conversation about sister wives. What are your thoughts, Jezebel? I have lived many experiences. Let me just say that. I lived a particular experience where it wasn't a wife. It was because the brother was being a surrogate caretaker for the sister. I, as the mate, presented a threat to the physical sister. And I could not figure it out. I was younger then, and I was like, why is she acting like this is her dude? The jealousy that she exhibited was as if this was her man. And the reality was, if you take out the physicalness out of the situation, you're looking at the sister was looking at her brother as her surrogate aid to assist her and her child. And I presented a threat to their security. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's pretty much women are looking for security for themselves and their children. And if something or someone comes and presents that as a threat, especially if they to the situation as a sister wife will be, where she has the ear of the man, if the contention is that I am not looking for a companion in this space, and the woman wants the relationship with the man, then that other woman is going to be a problem in her mind. Now, I have a theory, but let me look at some of the things. Maybe I'll come back with the theory next time here. But I have a theory of why some of these situations work. I've witnessed women being punished and everything taken from them and the children because they were told they were out of order by not letting other women come into. And this is what we also have to talk about, how families are destroyed when the claim is that this is supposed to strengthen the bonds of family, and how families become destroyed. Many and sis says it's getting out of control, but the Creator sees it all and will rightly rule it out. Correct. There's a lot of people and families being destroyed, and people not really talking about the truth of, playing oopsie, oopsie with people's lives. Like, yes, move up, pack all your stuff, come on in to our home. They go do a little wellness visit and they cook together and make some quinoa. And like, yeah, this is great. I can't move in, this, that, and the third. And then they move in. Mommy. Okay. Yeah, I heard you. They're late. 15, 20 minutes. I only want a set. I feel in some instances a sister wife can become a catalyst for contention, because that is actually in the word. There's an article that Sister Mayana wrote. I'm going into and how many, I think she was able to pick up 5 or 6 different cultures where their word for sister wife meant rival, meant trouble, meant narrow places. In about 5 or 6, I'm gonna link that to the this video, because that was an interesting study that she does. She does a lot of anthropological study, and so in anthropology, and in many cultures that was the perception. Okay, now I have a theory in situations where sister wife does work. When sisterhood is more important than the relationship with the man. For instance, if the woman is in a relationship with the man and the relationship is like, and the sister is really looking more for sisterhood, camaraderie with another sister who can like bear her troubles with her, kind of, she would cleave more to the woman so that they can be allies against the man. And in those situations, you will hear the man say stuff like, oh, they always team up against me, and you always take her side against mine, because in that space, the woman may be in the relationship. She's not going anywhere. She can't bear it alone, and so she decides it's better for me to team up with this sister. And if that sister who comes in has the same sentiment, then you will see people who have sister wives who they're connected with, and the man is kind of the outsider. That's the one where it may work. You have another situation where, you can tell I gave a lot of thought to this, right? You have another situation where you have the woman who is not in compliance with another woman coming into her space. The other woman who comes into her space, her assumption is that you are not doing something, and that's why he needed me to come here, right? And so now that I'm here, I'm going to show him that I'm better than you. And then this is where the contention comes in between the first wife and the second wife, because the second wife who comes in feels as though they're the better model, and eventually she will be able to push either physically the woman out or emotionally be able to separate the man and the woman. So what she would do is in two situations. One situation, she won't even mess with the woman. She'll just be extra catty with her, and it's just going to be open. That's when she doesn't care what the man thinks. But if she wants to front and pretend like she's trying in front of the man to win him over, she will pretend, she will friend up the wife, and then she will collect information, and then she will go take the information to the man during pillow talk sessions. You see what I'm saying? So it's depending on the dynamic and in which situation she will drive the wedge between the existing couple, and then she will become the victim. So in that latter scenario, that is what you will see the rival. We see that scenario in the case of Hannah and Peninnah, the story that was illustrated in the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, where it seems as though Hannah was the loved one, and there's a possibility that Hannah was the first one, but she was barren. So he has Peninnah who comes in and she bears children. And so she's using the fact that she's able to bear children as a point of contention, harass and belittle Peninnah. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you will see that situation. You saw the same situation although it says she was a concubine, but you see the same situation with Abraham and Sarah and Hagar, right? And then if you look in real time, I saw that show, Seeking Sister Wife, and you had a melanated couple on there, the Snowdens, I think their name is. And apparently the male said early on that he was a polygynist, and so he already primed the mind of the wife to be that you have to accept this early on. And according to them, they tried it multiple times, and it didn't work. So the wife, in my estimation, in the observation of what I saw, she sought to be more in control of the situation. And you may have more wives like that, where I have to pick her out. She has to be my friend. What's going on, everybody? Welcome. She has to be my friend, right? She has to be in agreement with me to a certain degree. And so she becomes the junior wife, in which the elder wife has the control. And in a lot of African households, that's kind of how it goes. A lot of people are like, oh, polygyny, not how they do in Africa. Why do you have to have a number system? That's what they usually have. The first person, the senior one, she gets the respect as basically you're coming to a certain degree, sometimes as her handmaiden, and sometimes, where she's the one who kind of sets the stage. And herein lies the contention. Now, if the woman just wants some place to be, and she just wants some place to belong, and she really doesn't care, she will buy her time. Oh, sorry, I accidentally deleted your message, Jason. I didn't do that on purpose. Definitely the first wife always has clout. And I've heard people complain about that in the West, like, oh, why does she have to be first? Why can't they just be called wives? And this last thing, because they said they soon come. My mother said they soon coming. The comparison of wives to children. Children are meant for you to have children who are, first, second, third children. There's no problem to say, this is my oldest child, this and that. A wife is not a child. And like I said before, the category for the wife this way. It doesn't go this way. It goes this way. And this is why you stack them on top of each other. You know what I mean? Because the reality is you cannot necessarily perform the duty of a husband with all of these women concurrently. Some people may say they can, and that's up for debate. So that's my thought on sister wives. I have much more. There's articles that I can put for you guys to read that we have done the studies. Don't believe the hype. Don't fall for the emotional exploitation. sometimes the objection, sometimes we don't have the words, and this happened to me early on. I didn't have the words to express what I was feeling, right? Because I didn't have the research, because I was blindsided. This was all new. I'm like, what? I didn't have the words, but deep in, I knew it was wrong. So for the next umpteen years, I just collected data, tried to objectively collect this data. There was a man in Ethiopia. He was in the village. He had, I forgot how many, he had over 100 children and how many wives he had. At the end of the day, he had to start selling off or parsing off his young daughters to go marry early because he did not have the resources and the finances to send them to school or even to feed them. So he began to parse off his young daughters. That was like a BBC coverage or whatever the case may be. And then you had outside entities, the World Health Organization and stuff like this, coming trying to give the women, his wives, birth control so that they don't continue to populate. Crazy, right? The children. Let me tell you, Muna, when the children become adults, this is the truth. This is the truth. Major beefs about the inheritance of the father among the separate households. This is also true. Remember what they told us. They said this is nation building, and this is this, and this is that. And like you said, Jason, the truth is, whomever the mother is, that is either the stigma or the energy that falls on the children. And like you said, in many cases, the children begin to beef because you may be the children of the mother who was hated, or the children of the mother who was neglected, or the children of the mother who was loved. And these mothers begin to vie for position because oftentimes if they weren't out in society and they didn't have insurance and they weren't covered, whatever the inheritance that their children is going to get is going to cover them so that they're not out in the street. Right? So it's very short-sighted when we have this conversation and not follow it through the generations to see how it really plays out and whether or not what we claim we're out to build actually happens. What's up? What's up? I'm on the thing. Go that way. Okay. What happened? I finished my homework. Okay, let Tutu do it. That's my young one here. Hold on. Let's see. Children out living with them, major dysfunction. You raise them and they go on and find their mate. Marriages for life. Do you have some books you would recommend since your frequency is high? Hallelujah. There's a lot of books. I would have to, I'm out of study mode. I have to go back and look at some of the books that I read. I read a lot of papers. If you go on Google Docs, not Google Docs. Yeah, Google Docs. No, Google Scholar. The Scholar. When I read a lot of scholarly articles, right? Where you go into scholarly, they do study, anthropology studies, studies of that nature. A lot of my books are packed up right now because we're in transition. So, I'm not burning a fire. I'm here to be like, let's have an honest conversation. Because propaganda on any side is going to hurt the people, right? So if we pretend like, oh, it's all good, and oh, you pretend like it never happened and it didn't serve a purpose, I'm not that person. I'm here to say, okay, what is the truth about the matter? Because a lot of things, what happens is when people are either like I'm burning a fire or I'm propagating this thought, we don't allow for free thought. We don't allow for honest thought. We don't allow for contrarian thought. So if somebody says they against poly, then they're just say why it shouldn't be done. If somebody says they pro poly, they don't want to hear, and I've experienced, they don't want to hear nothing of the facts. And this, at the end of the day, if you don't equip the individual, if you beguile the individual, Mojo in the comment section. No, let me see. I mean, that's. Y'all free to talk to one another. Just keep it respectful. Keep it respectful. Everybody has their stance. The reality is what is being pushed. You can go look on YouTube right after this video, like polygyny, it will save the black community, and you see what comes up, and you're like, really? Oh, here comes the tow truck. Right as me said that, tow truck man come and pull away the car. Okay, we're gonna have to go find out what's wrong with this car, y'all. We'll come back. If y'all want to talk more about this subject, I will. Yo, dude running up hard too. All right, let me go see what's wrong with this car, y'all. I'll be back. Hello.
How you doing?
Ah. Okay.